We'll begin by modeling the eyes. For that, we're going to use the default cube, but delete all its vertices in edit mode. Shift X and delete. Then we'll add a circle and press F6 to edit the properties of this last operation. The amount of vertices will be 12, which is a good number, and align to view. It was the front ortho view, the one we're working on. Then we'll add a mirror modifier, so we only have to model half of it. We'll now rotate this to the side, and for that we're going to hit R twice, so it will execute a trackbar rotation based on the center of the selection. Now let's extrude this shape to the inside by hitting E and then S, moving the mouse to the center. Keep in mind that really Blender cares where the position of the cursor is. If it's close to the center of the selection, then the transformation will be much more stronger. If your mouse is far away from the center of the selection, the transformation will be subtle. Just did another extrusion to the inside, and now we will make the bridge between the eyes. Just E to extrude and then move to the center. So you can see they overlap because we didn't enable the clipping option in the mirror modifier. This makes it so the mesh doesn't go through the other side of the mirror. Let's continue with the nose. I select that loop by holding Alt and right click on an edge. Then extrude with E and start making sort of the nose shape of this character. For that little cut at the end, I use the loop cut tool, which is Ctrl R, the shortcut for it, and we will use it again. But for now, you can see that it makes a little pink line along a loop, and you can just hit left click to accept that. I'm going to extrude this part of the nose. First, let's shape it a bit better. And the nose was very, very tricky. I made it a couple of times before actually making it right now here. I know it's cheating, but I want to show you the cleanest way for making it. So I made the hole for the nose basically, then extruded in, so I have a nice loop there. Then I continue joining the top part with the bottom part by making faces with F key, selecting 4 vertices and F to make a new shape, a new face. Then cutting with Ctrl R. I'm not using any new tool right now. You can see on the bottom left all the keys I press. Then I need more vertices over there, so I'm going to add with Ctrl R using the loop cut tool. Then what I'm trying to do now is just a way to make the nostril and to keep that part clean. So maybe that's okay. Then F to make a face, and then I just keep extruding to the inside. But the most important was to have the shape of the nose well. I just added a subdivision surface modifier that basically it subdivides the faces and smooth the interpolation between them. So you have a much better and soft mesh. But as you can see, in parts where you don't have enough vertices, it makes it too smooth. Almost every modifier has 4 little buttons in the header of each one. The first one being to enable or disable the visibility of this modifier on render. The second one is to enable or disable it in the 3D view. The third one is for editing, if you want to see it in edit mode or not, but it will still be visible in object mode. And the fourth one is the cage. So you basically see the actual position of the vertices after the transformation of this modifier. Modeling with that cage enabled is not recommended because you don't actually edit the actual position of the vertices, and it's not really comfortable. This modifier subdivides the meshes and make it more smooth, but you lose these hard edges sometimes. So if you want to add that back, the best way is to just subdivide that part or just add a new loop cut. The more vertices you have, the more defined your mesh will be. That box selection is made by Control B. You hit Control B and then just draw a box. That will be your selection. If you accept that selection with left click, then it will select the vertices down there. But if you do it with middle mouse button instead of left click, it will deselect whatever is inside that box. Sometimes it's nice to hide some vertices so you can see the mesh without them, how it would be. So just select them and hit H to hide and Alt H to unhide. You can see now why it was a good thing that we had that loop over there, because that way I can just hit Ctrl R to make a new loop cut like I just did and add more detail wherever I need it. And the detail will stay in that part. It will not go to the rest of the head or the body. That's a great thing. Before spending more time in the nose, let's move down to the mouth. Just selected that loop with holding Alt and right click, then extrude and hold middle mouse button and draw a line down. That will constrain it to the vertical axis, which is in this case Z or Z. If you do it in other directions like horizontal, it will constrain it to the other axis, which in this case is Y. Now I just closed the bottom part by extruding from the side to the center of the mesh. And in the back I had 4 vertices, so I can make a face. But in the front I have 5 vertices, so I will need a loop cut there. But actually, if you think of it, that part it will be the neck, so I don't need that. I just deleted that vertex, and all the detail I need will be actually under the mouth, and then I can add a loop cut so I can have the same amount of vertices in the front part of the face and the bottom part of the mouth. Because I don't care on the neck part. I will actually need vertices later on. So it's just a matter of tweaking, and I'm just extruding. Just keep using extrude and tweaking the shape of my character. Let's add more detail to the mouth. Just Ctrl R again to add a loop cut, because we have a nice loop over there. Yes, that will be the bottom part of the mouth. And you can already see where this is going. So basically I'm opening up what it would be the mouth. And let's use a new tool over here. Let's cut this part. I could do it with Ctrl R, but that will make vertices all over the back of the face. I don't need that. I only want detail in the mouth. So we're going to use a new tool called knife. It's pretty simple to use. You just hit K and then draw the figure you want to cut. So something like that. So we can make the mouth shape. And as you can see, Blender can cut and create faces of any number of polygons. But for example, this big one here, that's actually a face. But we don't really want something like that because it doesn't work that well for animation. So what we are going to do is fix this and convert it to quads. How do we do that? We can do it manually by selecting 2 vertices and hitting J. J will create a link between these 2 vertices and split the faces. So now we have a nice loop over there. Let's check out the shape. Now we want to remove that part. Edge selection mode, Control Tab to switch the selection modes. I need to fix that here in the front. It seems when I did the cut, it didn't cut this part, so it's easy to fix. Just remove that edge and extrude and then make a face on the holes. Selecting the vertices and hitting F. So to select that ring, you could do it manually, but there is a shortcut for that. It's Control Alt right click on the edge and it will select all the edges in that edge ring. Then it was just a matter of deselecting the other ones. I did it in this case with the circle selection, which is C, and then just remove the edges. And since we have this nice loop over there, we can fix the vertices a little bit, move them around, and add a loop so we can have more definition in the lips area. So Ctrl R to add a loop, and then I will scale it, but not scale it with S. I will scale it with Alt S, which is the tool Shrink Flatten. It's really nice. It's like scaling, but instead of scaling from the center of the selection, it will do it along the normal of each face. In this case, a vertex, because that's what we have selected. So it's really handy, because, for example, if you're facing a vertex, it will scale it in its own direction, which is called the normal. Here, I needed to add more detail below the nose, so I could just cut with lap cut, but it will go all the way to the top of the head. So I just remove the inner part of the nostrils, so I can loop cut over there and just have detail where I need it, without worrying about the rest. So a bit of tweaking, and then I can close the nostril again. There is no actual need of that, but it's nice to keep it closed. So since I have 8 vertices, it's nice to close it. So since there was a face before there were 4 vertices. If I did one cut, I wouldn't have an even amount of vertices to make faces later. So that's why I did 2. Some more tweaking, and when you want to tweak a big amount of vertices, or when they are too close together, you can enable the proportional editing tool from the header, or just hitting O. Now every time you use transform, like rotation, grab, or scale, you will notice that there is a little circle around your selection. That means that whatever is inside that circle, it will be affected by the transformation you make. You can change the size of that circle by hitting plus or minus, or you can just scroll wheel. Now let's smooth the surface so we can see a better shading on our mesh. This option is under the W menu called Specials, but there are 2 options, Smooth and Shade Smooth. The Smooth option smooths actually the position of the vertices. We don't want that. We want the shade smooth. By default, when you add a circle and you extrude, the normals are not pointing to the same side. So we have to fix this manually. This is why we see all these black things here. We fix this by just recalculating the normals by hitting Control N in edit mode, or you can do it also from the toolbar panel in the left side. So tweaking a bit more the eye socket, I want to add a placeholder sphere over there so I don't deform this too much, because there will be an eye there. So since new objects are added on the position of our cursor, let's put it there. Select the ring of the eye, and then mesh snap cursor to selected, or you can also do Shift S. Then the cursor is positioned on the selection. That's great. Then we could add a new mesh, and we could do it actually in object mode, but then this new object wouldn't have any modifier, and you have to add it manually. So it's faster if we actually add it inside edit mode of our old mesh, because it already keeps everything. And now we separate that into a separate mesh. So first, let's tweak the amount of vertices. So it's not that detailed. That's okay. Align to view. We could just rotate it. It's the same. Scale it down a little bit to make it fit. Perfect. And now let's separate it to another object so it doesn't bother when we are modeling. You press P and then separate selection. And shade smooth. And we could just leave it like that, but we can also use another feature to fake this shape of the iris in our mesh. So you could just select those vertices and extrude, or we can also learn a new tool which is called rip. You select those vertices and then hit V. That will rip the vertices selected and it will create like two separate islands. Now our mesh is not together anymore and you can see it in the shading, which is a great tool. If we want to put them together again, you can just remove doubles because the vertices are always on top of each other. Remove doubles is inside the W menu. Remove doubles. Now let's close the mouth. This shouldn't be any hard. We already seen most of the tools. We are just going to implement a new one as an alternative. So first, let's extrude that part only, so we keep the part that actually joins the bottom and the top. And because we need more vertices there, and I'm going to show you now how to do it. This thing I'm doing now is Alt B. It clips the border, it clips the view actually to a border that you can draw. So that way you're not cutting your actual model, but you're just the view. So it's easier to model that way. To disable, just hit the same Alt B. So in the bottom was pretty easy to do. I just added a new cut so I can have more vertices close to the lips. And here, for example, I could just extrude to the inside and then make that missing face, and then I already have a nice loop that goes all around the lips. Yeah, that would be the faster way to do it. Why? Because if I didn't extrude and I just joined the inner part of the mouth, and there. If I just join that, I will have one pole there, one vertex that shares many. Then, if I did it the other way around, I will have a triangle there, and that is not really good. So what we do is just extruding that missing bit, and then we have a nice quad on the bottom, and a nice loop around the lips, which is really important too, to keep that. On the top, though, it's different. We have many more vertices, and on the front, because we added more detail, of course. But on the inside part of the mouth, we don't have that many, actually. I could just do the same and try extruding. Yes, and I can get rid of some of them, but not all of them. So how am I going to do that? I could add detail, but yeah, of course, if I add detail, it will go all around the body. And we don't want that because we will end up with many vertices that we don't need. So we're going to add detail only inside the upper side of the mouth. How? We could add, for example, if we need more vertices at the bottom, we could just like use the knife tool like we did before, cutting that face using the knife. Okay. But no, we're going to use another tool which does something similar. It is called inset. We're going to use this new inset, which is something like extruding to the inside, so to speak, but it's much easier. The shortcut is I, and let's do it without the cage. Okay, so you hit E, and then you can like select how much you want. Of course, this is not what we want, so just leave it there. And now in the F6 panel, or in the last property, you can click boundary. So now the inset will only happen on the boundaries, and it won't happen on the on all the edges, and that is what we need actually. So as you can see now, we have extra vertices and we can join them. So here, yeah, I could add that because we are actually missing vertices there to make it nicer. So here it's just a matter of, oops, that not. Just a matter of keep making faces. So here I still have like 3 on one side and then 2 on the bottom. That is not good. And let's try the same technique again. We need 1 extra vertex, so we're going to use inset again on that side to add more vertices. So just select the faces, press I, and it will preserve the settings of the last time we used it. So it would have boundaries disabled, so it will work properly for our needs. Just create the faces missing with F, and that's it. And now we have all the detail on the front and no detail in the back because we don't really need that. And it's the inner side of the mouth, so it's not that it needs a lot of elegant polygons, you know, unless you make a short movie or whatever featuring the inside part of the mouth. So this was the very basics. I hope you liked it. We are going to model the rest of the body using some of these and new tools. In the second part, we're going to model the rest of the body and some tweaks here and there in the head. We're going to use some of the tools we already covered in the first part, but we will also learn some new ones. This part is speed up because I'm not really doing anything interesting. I'm reusing most of the tools we already tried, like loop cut over there, smooth over there, and a lot of tweaking. Well, but that's modeling, you know. I'm going to model a bit of the tongue. So for that, I use the clipping. I clip the view with Alt B so I can see better inside of the mouth. Then select, extrude, then smooth. When you see that menu going flashing really fast, that's me pressing W and then click for smooth, because Blender remembers the last option you choose and just leave the mouse over there, so you can just W click all the time. It's awesome. You can also add a shortcut if you want. You can just right click over the smooth option and then select add shortcut. This shortcut will stay for as long as you have this Blender open. If you want it to stay forever, you can do it on a default Blender when you just open it and then save your settings. As you can see, it's a lot of tweaking. Here you have to decide for like how long your tongue is going to be. So you can see how many loops you need for animation later. Now it's modeling the uvula. That is pretty simple. It was just extruding and then smooth and extrude and smooth. Now for the throat, the same. Just select whatever you want and then extrude to the back. Some people like to go real, and then extrude more and more and more, but this is enough. I always extrude a little bit to the inside chest, so when occlusion gets in when lighting, makes that part darker and doesn't get a lot of light. More smooth. Now I'll prepare this part so I can start extruding the rest of the body. Yeah, you can go all the way. It's nice to just start extruding and see how the proportions will work. Let's take a bit more. It's nice to have it good from the start. Smooth, smooth. Before keep going, I like to have a reference of the height of my character. So here I'm just moving everything up. So in edit mode, I move my mesh, and in object mode, I move the eyes because they're a separate object. So I like to use the y-axis, the green one, as a reference to see how big my character or how tall my character is going to be. In this part where I'm going to close this part is like a cylinder. I'm going to close it, but I will not close it with the entire loop because that will look weird. I'm going to leave those, the top and the bottom. I'm going to join them and then use loop cut to decide how many cuts I need and then close it nicely. So the loop that comes from the top of the head can loop nicely to the bottom and then go all over again to the face. So that's more smooth, and Alt S for scaling along the normals, which is something I really use. If you see the shortcuts over there, you'll see that I use it all the time. Going to add more detail here. These loop cuts in the middle are just to, when I add the legs right now in a second, I can have more polygons over there. So here, let's start making some room for the leg. I could use the knife tool, which will work, but let's use the inset again. Inset gives you a bit more freedom, or more controls. So I just select that, then press I to inset. It's proportional, so it's nicer. And then remove that vertex in the center. Now smooth that part. And now I have a nice loop around the leg that I can just extrude to the bottom and then have a nice cylindric face. A nice cylindric shape. Extrude. Rotate a little bit. Trackball rotation because it's R twice. And then move it all the way to the bottom. That way I can see like how tall is going to be my character. Then Control R again to loop cut in some special parts where I need more polygons so I can bend the leg better. And at this point, I'm not really focusing on detail. It's just like an overall shape that I want to have. Here I'm adding a little knee-like shape just by extruding one of the faces in the front. Remember, all this is going to be covered by fur, so we don't really care about a special, like a special shape to follow. Just remember, everything will be fur. I'm going to close the legs really fast, just so I can focus on the feet. Remember, it's always better to have like a general view of the shape of your character before going into detail. I could have spent hours if I like in the legs, but it's nice to keep going and try to get an overall shape. Now at the bottom, as you can see, the loops that came from the leg, they were not flowing really well. They were stopped the way I did it. So I could just delete that and make it again, but we could use another option which is called edge rotate. You just select the edges and then hit edge rotate. Control E and edge rotate. You can use CW or CCWs, counterclockwise or clockwise. You can do it with multiple edges, not all the time. It doesn't work really well all the time, especially if your edges are not even, if the number of edges is not even, but it works most of the time on multiple edges. On single edges, it works always. This multiple edges option was added recently in Blender 2.62 with the B-Mesh, the new mesh system. So here I was trying something with the legs, with a knife tool, then using the vertex connect option to convert these n-gons into quads. So, and this was just an experiment. I like to keep these parts just as you see how I messed everything up. And at the end, I think I didn't do much, and then I will go back to this later. That's another good thing to learn. It's like if you are stuck in one part of your model, just move on. Just leave it not ugly enough, and then move on with the rest of the body or any other shape. Now trying to find an idea how to leave that. And the reason I leave it this way is because we're going to have fur later. So these faces will be emitting hair. And this shape, it may not look good in 3D, but with the fur on top of it, looks better, way better. Now I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to select that part of the mesh and then Shift D to duplicate. That will duplicate part of my leg. I don't want to model the entire leg again. And they are different, of course, the front leg and the back leg. So the front leg and the one in the back, they are different. So I'm going to do some tweaking here now. I'm not going to leave it right. I'm going to leave it exactly the same. So adding some more edge loops. So the vertex count in the leg and the vertex count. So the vertex count in the body and in the leg, they match. So I can use this new tool called Edge Bridge Tool Edge Loops. It's in the Control E. So I can use this tool called Bridge Edge Loops. And it doesn't work perfect every time. So you need to do some tweaking over there and then add some more polygons. And I'm not really extremely happy with that. So what I'm going to do here now is do it a bit more up, because actually the legs of the Guanacos or this character, it's a bit more, starts a bit more up. Adding some more resolution over there. And now I will try to use again bridge to edge loops, and it doesn't look that nice. And you can keep smoothing that and fixing manually, but it doesn't look really nice. So what I'm going to use now is an add-on. This add-on has the same functionality, but with some more options, and it's all made in Python, and it's really fast and it's awesome. So go to User Preferences, Control-Alt-U, then on Add-ons tab, and then mesh and search for mesh loop tools. Enable that, and now in the W menu, you will find on top of everything, you will find a loop tools option with a bridge sub option. Click that, and now let's play with the settings here in the last operator panel in the T panel on the left. Some cool stuff that it has is that you can split it in many segments, and you can even change the shape of this distortion. It's really good. So sometimes it works better than the one included on Blender by default. This might change. Maybe one day they put it for good, but it's always there. Just look in the add-ons section and keep looking, because there are many cool add-ons for modeling, for texturing, for all kind of stuff. These add-ons are extensions made by developers from the community. Now modeling a bit of the tail, which is pretty simple. It's just one face extruded 2 times. That's it. Remember, all this is going to be covered by fur, so it's not a big deal. So now I'm going to speed up this a little bit. So now I'm going to speed up this a bit. It's not extremely fun, but I'm going to leave it. It's just a lot of tweaking. Moving individual vertices with proportional editing enabled. The good thing is that, for example, if you click on a single vertex and hit S to scale, if you don't have proportional editing enabled, it's not going to do anything. You can't scale a single vertex. They don't have a size. But if you have proportional editing enabled, then it will affect the neighbor vertices, which is good. The same for rotation. You can't rotate a single vertex, but if you do it with proportional editing, then it works better. Here I'm just trying shapes, just trying to make the character a bit more fat, for example, by selecting everything and hitting Alt-S for scaling along the normals. This Alt-S tool is called Shrink Flatten. Some more ticking, and now let's model the ears. Going to slow down this again to real time so we can follow the process. I'm just trying selecting this because I like to have not to have extremely detailed, but if I did it with only one face, I wouldn't have enough vertices. So I'm doing it with 2 faces, and then extruding, rotating. Here I'm rotating along a certain axis, which is the vertical axis, the Z or Z. Then extrude again, trying to follow the shape. Looking from every angle. And now I'm going to remove part of the ear so I can keep modeling the back of the ear first. So I remove the tip, smooth, put the front a bit more to the inside so I can make like a convex shape, concave. Then extrude up and then keep extruding and extruding. Alt-S to scale. And as you can see on the tip, I press F to make a face, and I didn't notice that I actually have more than 4 vertices, so I had an n-gon, and that's not really good. Let's try to make it a quad. I could make 2 triangles on every side and then close the tip, but that wouldn't work. It's not fun to have triangles. So what I could do, and what I did, was just joining the back and the front, then using loop cut to make a cut in between them, and then joining the rest of the, then making faces on the little holes that I left there. Now let's start giving more shape. Alt S a lot. Then oops, the vertices got connected over there. So for that I have to disable clipping. Going to disable clipping so I can move the vertices there, the faces, and they don't get stick. And now I'm going to make the inner part of the ears. I'm going to use the inset tool again. So I'm going to inset a little bit and now play with the settings. First, I'm going to click on the offset relative and then move the thickness and the depth. The thickness is just the same you do when you hit I and then move the mouse. That's the thickness. But the depth, what it makes, it pushes this inset to the inside or the outside, which is nice. You can do it later on, of course, but it's nice that this tool already has it. So I'm going to rotate this a little bit because they are facing to the front, which is not always the case how they are. Going to disable clipping for a little bit and then enable it again. Otherwise they wouldn't let me go to the other side because I'm editing with the cage enabled. More endless tweaking. I think the head was too big, so I'm just tweaking that part. Some of this proportion tweaking, we'll do it later in the sculpting tutorial. In the first part. Now I just want to see how this looks in render, so I just added a plane, and now I'm going to make a little render because the shape could look good, nice in the 3D view, but sometimes it doesn't in the actual render. So playing a bit with the nose, which was a bit too wide. this point was a good thing to have the cage enabled for editing, but it's not always the case. Here I'm going to use another new tool. I'm going to slow down this a little bit because I want to slide that vertex to close to another edge. So with the vertex selected, I will do Ctrl V and then select vertex slide, or Shift B, which is a shortcut. This option, once you have it enabled, lets you slide the vertex on the edge you select. So now it's just a really quick lighting. Enable GLSA preview so I can see a bit better. Enable ambient occlusion in add so I have light without actually putting some light of ambient light. I'm adding a little bit of Fresnel or like fall off effect, which is with the ramps. It's pretty fast. It's just to see the silhouette a bit better. And since I don't want the plane to be rendered, I just enable the shadows only option in the material for the plane on the ground. Trying to make the nose a bit more flat. Trying to get the shape a bit more defined. And finally added a loop cut there in the mouth so I can make it smile. Important, smiling is important. So now I'm actually trying to come back to this part of the legs. Yes, trying to get that a bit better. It's not perfect, but it's a bit better, and we'll tweak it in the next chapter and do some more modeling over there. But actually like sculpting in the next chapter. And that's pretty much it for this part of the tutorial. We already have the entire character pretty much, and now we're going to model some other little details and the eyelids, for example, fine tuning. So in the third part of our modeling tutorial, we're going to model the eyelids and take the overall shape of our character. For that, we're going to use mainly the proportional editing tools. Like now, I'm opening a bit more of the eyes so we can get more expressions even from the front view, which is always nice. For the eyelids, I'm going to start with the rings that make the eye socket right now. So I will duplicate this. First, select in face select mode, so it's easier. Select the main ring. Then Ctrl+ to select the surrounding loops, which is also nice. And then Shift D to duplicate. And then with this selection, press P and then selection. That will make a new object that is a copy of the previous one, but only containing these rings, which is better. Now I want to close the lips in the middle, and I don't have enough geometry over there. So I'm going to use Control R to add one new loop there. And on the other side, I already have one, so no need to add one right now. We're going to add it later on. So I want to rotate this from the center of like what it would be the eye. So for that, we're going to use the 3D cursor position as a reference. So we're going to select these two vertices and then Shift S for a snap menu and then cursor to select it. That would put the cursor in the center of these two vertices, and that's what we want. So select everything. I'm going to deselect that. And now if we rotate, you'll see that we still are rotating according to the center of the selection. So for that, we're going to change it from the header, the pivot point menu, and select 3D cursor. Now, whatever we do, like rotation or scaling, it will be using as a pivot point the 3D cursor. So that makes it nicer. If we rotate with R once, we will rotate according to the view. But if we hit rotate R twice, then it will rotate according to the center of the cursor. This is called trackball rotation. So let's add a bit more geometry over there so the rotation is, so the mesh is deformed nicely. Deselect that part and the other bit. And now let's try with R once and R twice, which sometimes gives it more control. That looks better. So it's nice to push it all the way, like if it would be closed. So when you model and when we're going to add detail over there, it's easier to have it that way, and then you can fold it if you want to do animation later on. So I'm going to do the same on the top part. R and then double R just to do the trackball rotation and rotate it better. Okay, that looks nice enough. To remove the outer ring for now, just to see if it looks good enough. Let's try extruding and then Alt S and S. We are using as a reference right now the 3D cursor, so keep that in mind. So I extruded and deselected the top part, so I can just rotate the bottom half. Scale a little bit. And that will make it for now. We're going to add detail later, don't worry. So now the same, select all that ring, deselect the bottom part, and then rotate the top half. Not that much, otherwise it will look really stretched. We don't want that. Some manual tweaking, so doesn't look that bad. Okay, good enough. Let's add more detail. Control R to add a loop, because this is a loop. It's nice. Alt S to scale along the normals, so we can shrink and flatten that. Some manual tweaking. Control R to add a bit more geometry there so we can make a nice crease. Control R again to make these edges more sharp. The good thing is that if you keep the cursor there, you can keep rotating the shape and still like model, add detail, and then rotate again. So we need more geometry down there. We're going to make a little wrinkle, but for that we're not going to use the Control R. In this case, we're going to use the inset because we only want detail over there. We don't want more detail in the inside part of the eye. So inset, maybe not. Let's try with knife so we can draw the actual wrinkle. So just select that bit, then press K and draw the line you want to cut. Then fix those angles by selecting the vertices and then pressing J, so it will split the faces into quads. And manually adjust the wrinkle, this new wrinkle. Remember, you can add as many as you want, but in this case we're just adding this bit just to give it a bit more volume, so it looks more nice. Cool, let's do it in the top part. Select these faces so we know as a reference, then press K for the knife and then draw the line you want to do. Click, enter, accept. Nice. Just fix those angles by selecting the vertices and then J for vertex connect. And let's push some of these vertices down. When you select individual vertices, if you hit Alt S for shrink flatten, they will move along the normal, and that's pretty nice because you can do it even from the front view, or if the vertices are pointing towards the camera, for example, towards your view, you can do Alt S and that will move them to the inside or to the outside independent of the view. That's great. Let's enable wire to see how it looks. Nice. You can always press Alt Edges with the object selected in the end panel, in the display panel. So you get to see all the edges and check the topology if it's good enough. Manually make the lips a bit bigger. You can always add more geometry if you need. We have a nice loop over there that we can just Control R to add a new loop cut. I'm going to speed this bit up because it's not really nothing new happening. I always try with Alt S, the shrink flatten. I always try that just for the sake of it. Like select the loop and then try how it looks if you shrink flatten it. It's always nice. Then to make some wrinkles, it's nice to just select the quads. For example, here in the back, select the quads, then extrude, then Alt S to shrink flatten, and then you have instant wrinkles. It's always nice. Again, remember this is going to be all covered by fur, so don't worry about geometry that much. It's nice to add these nice little bumps in some parts where you know it will be more hairy, or remember each face is going to be emitting particles, hair particles, so have that in mind. So basically this is modeling. It's just pushing vertices. Sometimes you do it really slow, sometimes you add vertices, but in this case it's just trying to get the shape right and just try to follow, to make the edges follow a nice shape. In case of organic objects, of course, object characters. In the next chapter, we are also going to tweak the proportions in the sculpt mode. So if it's not entirely fine here, we can always change it later on. That's it.